Good day, welcome to News Now on TV360. I am Thelma Okoro. Nigeria's Minister of Health, Isaac Adewale, has said in the last 72 hours there has been no new confirmed cases of Lassa fever in the country. The minister, who was speaking at a news conference in Abuja, said the development showed that the spread of the disease was being curtailed. He disclosed that the federal government is most concerned about the outbreak and has constituted a four-man committee to visit the worst-hit areas in the country. He added that 4 suspected cases of the disease in Rivers and Lagos states turned out to be negative. While stating that there was a cure for Lassa fever, the minister advised Nigerians to be vigilant as early detection helps in nipping the disease in the bud. Meanwhile, the Edo State Commissioner for Health, Hereje Ahihunwa, has confirmed that 1 person has died from Lassa fever in the state. Ahihunwa, who also revealed that doctors at the Irua Specialist Hospital in the state were battling to save the life of another who was also diagnosed of the disease. The Nigerian Army panel reviewing allegations of professional misconduct against soldiers who participated in the last general elections has submitted its report indicting some officers and recommending them for various degrees of sanctions. The board, led by the General Officer, 1 Division of the Nigerian Army, Major General Adeni Oyebade, said in a statement that the recommendations of the panel would be of assistance to the Army and the nation in the future. In the statement signed by the Acting Director, Army Public Relations, Colonel Sani Usman, 2 officers were recommended for compulsory retirement, 1 for prosecution for receiving money, and 3 others were recommended to lose their command. The board further recommended the placing of 15 officers on watch list, while 9 others were to be handed over to the Economic and Financial Crime Commissions for further investigations following allegations of corruption against them. The candidate of the All Progressives Congress in the governorship election in Bayelsa State has said he would challenge the result of the election in court. Timothy Silva told journalists that INEC and the PDP worked in concert to rig the election in favor of the PDP. The Independent National Electoral Commission declared the candidate of the PDP, Serika Dixon, winner of the Bayelsa State governorship election on Sunday. Silva, at a press conference, said he had officially complained prior to the election that the present structure of INEC in the state would not conduct a credible election. According to him, the INEC officials were assembled by the immediate past administration to deliver the state to PDP in the last general elections. Meanwhile, 14 out of the 20 parties that participated in the election have advised Silva to accept the outcome of the poll in good faith. The Transition Monitoring Group TMG has discredited the result of the Bayelsa supplementary elections, which was won by the incumbent governor of the state, Serika Dixon. Chairman of the group, Ibrahim Zikirulahi, said observers' reports show a high level of ballot box snatching, violence and intimidation of voters during the exercise. The chairman also expressed his displeasure at the conduct of some security officials during the election process.
However, TMG observers again reported high levels of violence, harassment and intimidation at the polling units on January 9, 2015, which impeded significant numbers of observers from observing the process. In addition, instances of snatching ballot boxes, damaging election materials, and stealing ballot papers prevented vote counting and the announcement of results from taking place at many of the polling units observed in southern Niger. TMG deems it that these incidents were of sufficient gravity to call into question the overall credibility of the election process and the legitimacy of the results declared. TMG's observation effort on January 9, 2016 supplementary election highlights the following. Although INEC's decision to merge the accreditation and voting process is in itself a step forward, a step towards international best practice, the timing of the decision, which resulted in a change of the electoral procedures 48 hours before the opening of the polls, did not allow enough time for officials to get acquainted with the new procedure. TMG noted high levels of violence at many of the observed polling units. Widespread instances of ballot box snatching, damage of ballots, and stealing of ballot papers hindered the counting and announcement of results at polling units in many polling units in southern Niger. Stealing of ballot papers and ballot snatching and ballot box snatching are both acts of electoral fraud, characteristics of the early days of Nigeria's return to democratic rule, and were especially prevalent in the 2007 electoral cycle. TMG strongly condemns this deeply flawed electoral trend and calls on all stakeholders to do everything legally possible to avoid returning Nigeria to the experiences of the 2007 elections. The high level of harassment and intimidation meted out to our observers made it impossible for TMG observers to fully observe elections in Ekeremo, Nembe, and Southern Ijaw local government areas. The quick count recorded instances where observers were beaten, with their observation checklists snatched and destroyed. In many communities in Southern Ijaw, observers were prevented from observing. High levels of violence, harassment, and intimidation also affected the participation of voters. Such failures on the part of political parties, INEC, security agencies to adequately protect the voting rights of citizens on election day risk leading to political apathy and could ultimately undermine trust in the electoral process. Given the number of critical incidents recorded and the inability of TMG observers to access some polling units, TMG contends that a credible election did not take place and that this should call into question the legitimacy of the overall outcome of Bayelsa State gubernatorial election.
The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has written an open letter to former President Goodluck Jonathan seeking explanations from him on what he knew or had reason to know on the apparent diversion and sharing of over $2.1 billion meant for the purchase of arms to fight Boko Haram. In a letter signed by Adetokunbo Mumuni, its executive director, SERAP asked Jonathan to explain if Dasuki was actually acting on his orders, as widely believed when he collected the money from the CBN. It also asks in the case that the president was unaware of the collection and diversion if the alleged scam was made possible by the failure of his administration to stem corruption. Many high-profile individuals and politicians have since been linked to the corruption scandal. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has defended its decision to hold Olisa Metu, the spokesperson for the People's Democratic Party, PDP, in its custody without charging him to court. In an interview with journalists, the acting chairman of the EFCC, Ibrahim Magu, said the commission is still keeping the PDP spokesperson in its custody because he has so far refused to refund the money he allegedly got from the illegal arms deal. The commission also denied claims it was on a witch hunt of leaders of the opposition PDP after its continued detention of Metu and release of Jafaru Issa, an APC chieftain. It also said that the APC detained was released because he had agreed to refund the money he had gotten from Dasuki. Meanwhile, Metu has sued the federal government and the EFCC following his continued detention. The suit was filed on Monday at the Federal High Court in Lagos. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema, says the federal government is in talks with the Swiss government for the release of another $300 million loot stashed by former military ruler Sani Abacha in some Swiss banks. Onyema revealed this, adding that the Swiss government is willing to make the transfer to Nigeria. The money is part of an estimated $5 billion stolen and stashed away in foreign accounts by the late dictator. Nigeria in the last 10 years has received over $1 billion from the Swiss and American governments, but there are growing concerns past administrations have misused the huge sum of money. 13-year-old Nigerian filmmaker Zuriola Duwole has presented the wife of the president of Kenya, Margaret Kenyatta, with an award for her contribution to education in the East African country. The First Lady was selected for the Dream Up, Speak Up and Stand Up Award for her tireless work in advocating for children's education, especially within the country. The award was launched by the Wonder Kid in 2013 to champion the education of the girl child across Africa.
As the world's youngest filmmaker and a girl education advocate, I know how important education is, but especially girls' education. And especially in parts of Africa where many factors sometimes prevent girls from going to school. Some are cultural, some are financial, and some are just not knowing the first step to take in going to school. So in my own little way of trying to make a difference, I've spoken to more than 23,000 children in 9 different countries about the importance of having dreams, staying in school, and getting a good education. Some of the countries I've spoken in are Nigeria, Ethiopia, South Africa, Ghana, Tanzania, Malawi, and Mauritius. Along the way, I have met with 16 presidents and prime ministers across 3 continents to talk about the importance of education. Because of how important this topic is, me and my project foundation wanted to encourage our leaders to do a lot more for children's education. So, in 2014, we started the Dasusu Awards, which recognize a First Lady in Africa and a Gender Minister in Africa doing a lot in the areas of girls' education and gender development. That year, the award for the Gender Minister went to Honorable Minister Muriel Martin of Mauritius. The award for the First Lady went to Her Excellency Madam Selma Kikwete of Tanzania. In 2015, the award for the Gender Minister went to Honorable Minister Nana Oyelether of Ghana. So, it gives me great privilege to announce that the 2015 Dasusu Award for the African First Lady doing a lot to support girls' education is being given to Her Excellency Mrs. Margaret Kenyatta.
We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll look at business and international stories. Please don't go away.
Hello, you're welcome. You're watching the Funny White Man Show, which is the biggest, the brightest, and the most entertaining show in Africa.
Funny white man, funny white man, funny white man, but this way you talk, it's too much. Give me 5,000 man, that's you. It's too much. So you get it like, when she move along the street, yeah, me should like there, I'm going girl. You know, my own people, actually. Yeah, fine, it's fun. I enjoy it. And I'm one of those very few. I'm forever taking it personal. I will listen 160 million Nigerians are corrupt. How? My brother, I'm looking for you.
Yeah, but it's a growth, and this is the time to build business and know the pitfalls and know what to do and what not to do. But there are months where you get business and months.
You know how we do, how we train them. We did the way you did.
Hello, you're welcome. You're watching Trending Matters on the Funny White Man Show. Of course, we will bring you trending issues just to entertain and tickle your fancy.
Welcome back. You're watching TV360 News now. To business stories. The Central Bank of Nigeria has stopped the payment of foreign exchange to bureau de change operators. This was disclosed by the governor of the CBN, Godwin Emefiele, who said that the new measure was taken to help shore up dwindling foreign reserves. The currency hit a record low of 282 naira per dollar on the unofficial market on Monday after the CBN's announcement. Emefiele said foreign reserves stood at around $28 billion compared with $37 billion in June 2014, that the bureau were depleting them at a rate of $28.4 million per week. Now, Nigeria's oil minister has said on Tuesday that a couple of members of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, had requested an emergency meeting as the price of oil touched on its lowest since 2004. Emmanuel Ibekachuku told reporters at an energy conference in Abu Dhabi that there was a lot of push from various blocs within OPEC for the need of a meeting. He added that current market conditions support the need to hold such a gathering. He said the meeting would take place between February and March would be used to review OPEC's position to see if there was any need to change its strategy. Crude oil fell 3% on Tuesday, heading toward $30 per barrel and levels not seen in over a decade, with analysts scrambling to cut their price forecasts and traders betting on further declines. Brent crude futures dropped over 3% to a low of $30.43 a barrel on Tuesday, a level last seen in April 2004, before edging back up to $30.69 a barrel, still down 89 cents from their last settlement. Traders and analysts said ballooning oversupply and China's slowing economy were the main reasons for the oil price rout, which has pulled prices down by over 70% since mid-2014. Moving on to the international scene, at least 10 people have been killed in an explosion in a district of Istanbul popular with tourists, the city authorities have said. The explosion occurred just after 10 a.m. local time in the city's historic Sultan Ahmet district, close to the Blue Mosque. 15 people were also wounded in the blast, the Istanbul governor's office said in a statement on its website. Meanwhile, Turkey's Deputy Prime Minister, Numan Kurtulmuş, has said most of the victims were foreigners and that the suicide bomber was a Syrian born in 1988 who had been identified from his body parts. More than 400 people in the besieged Syrian town of Madaya need to be urgently evacuated for medical treatment, UN humanitarian chief Stephen O'Brien has said. O'Brien was speaking after the UN Security Council held an urgent meeting to discuss the crisis in the rebel-held town near Damascus. Earlier, an aid convoy brought food to 40,000 town residents who have been under government siege for months. The UN says it has received credible reports of people dying of starvation in the town. Monday's aid delivery was the first allowed into Madaya since mid-October, when the UN's World Food Programme took a month's supply of food rations for 20,000 people. Lionel Messi has claimed his record 5th Ballon d'Or award after seeing off competition from his teammate Neymar and arch-rival Cristiano Ronaldo. Messi commanded 41.33% of all the votes ahead of Ronaldo on 27.76%, with Neymar a distant third on 7.86%. His victory ensures that the Messi-Ronaldo domination of the award goes into its 6th year in a row. Since its inception in 2010, the Ballon d'Or Awards has been dominated by both Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, as both players have now claimed each of the 6 awards. Pep Guardiola has apologized to his Premier League counterpart for his early confirmation that he would be leaving Bayern Munich. This is a subsequent admission he was keen to work in England. The Spaniard announced last month that he would leave the German champions at the end of the season to seek a move to the Premier League, prompting links to Manchester City and Manchester United, as well as Chelsea and to a lesser extent Arsenal. Speaking at Bayern's winter training camp in Doha, Qatar, Guardiola apologized for any perceived lack of respect to managers in England. He, however, refused to reveal who his next employers would be, saying he would only do so after he had signed a contract with them. Well, we've come to the end of news now. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Thelma Okoro.